Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We are in Harlem, New York City, in a park. Dr. Cornel West is holding a campaign event here. It's going to be starting soon, but they're starting the event with musical guests. So we're going to air the music, and then they'll have speakers. I believe they are going to have Christian Smalls, the former Amazon worker who was fired by Amazon for trying to organize a union, or he was fired by Amazon for trying to organize. Fired by Amazon for trying to organize at the beginning of COVID. He'll be here speaking, I believe, academic Norman Finkelstein, who obviously has been very, very outspoken against Israel over the slaughter of Palestinians in Gaza. I believe he'll be here speaking. Obviously, Dr. Cornel West will be speaking. This event is meant to try and get Dr. West on the ballot in New York, which has some of the most rigid, strict ballot measure laws and rules in the country, meant to keep third-party candidates off the ballot. Right now, Cornel West and Dr. Jill Stein are trying to get the signatures to get on the ballot in New York. Cornel West is now on the ballot in 7 states. He just got on the ballot in North Carolina. He is also on the ballot, let me get it for you, in Alaska, Oregon, South Carolina, Utah, Colorado, and Vermont. So West is on the ballot in Alaska, Oregon, South Carolina, Utah, Colorado, and Vermont. And he just got on the ballot yesterday in North Carolina. I interviewed him a little while ago. We're going to post it tomorrow on the channel. Said a lot of juicy things. But he did say that their goal and expectation is that he's going to be on the ballot in at least 40 states by October. Let me repeat, they believe they're going to be on the ballot in at least 40 states by October. He also had quite some provocative words for Joe Biden, the president, including that he believes President Biden is expressing outrage over the International Criminal Court's seeking a warrant to arrest Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Dr. West said he thinks Biden's outrage is actually based in fear because he believes the ICC might be knocking on his door next, which is pretty interesting. And he thinks that Biden is a genocide denier and a war criminal. So we'll have that interview up as soon as possible. Like I said, there's Dr. West. You can see him over there doing Cornel West type of things. So again, we're at a rally in Harlem, in New York City, and Dr. West will be speaking. Christian Smalls is going to be speaking, among others. And this is all about getting getting Dr. West on the ballot in the state of New York. I will be back a little bit later to try and do interviews, but right now we'll just let you listen. Please smash the like button. Please share this live stream. And a reminder, we have been doing, when I say we, I mean John Farina has covered over 50, let me repeat, over 50 ceasefire protests in New York City. I'm speaking kind of low because they're performing. John has covered over 50 protests in New York, in D.C. Tina has covered protests for us in L.A. Obviously, we're going to be on the ground as much as we can for the campaign. And Flint, we just produced a documentary for the 10-year anniversary of the Flint water crisis. That's up on our website now for free, flintfatigue.com. We really need your support. We've taken significant financial hits recently, and we're down right now. Unfortunately, we're down about $3,000 a month for various reasons. So if you can support us today, please sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for $5 a month. That equals 16 cents a day. Support us as a paying member so we could fund this on-the-ground reporting. I got to pay my cameraman, I got to pay myself, I got to pay Colin, we got to pay freelancers, we got to pay travel costs. It's very expensive to do on-the-ground reporting, but you're not going to see this kind of stuff on CNN, on MSNBC, on Fox News, or, frankly, other independent channels. You'll only see it on Status Coup. Now we'll take you to the event.
What I give and unlearn, should some peace and concern fill this empty dread on the wire we tread between fear and disgrace. Oh, my red American face, would my life be in vain if in strive for some small pain? I gave up the right to fight, and what oh, my white American skin. No more, no more. Endlessly journeying, yet to hear freedom ring. Must we all be tossed on the nation's cross before the truth is whole? Oh, my lost American soul. No more. I wouldn't really be up here if it weren't for Dr. Cornel West. Over the last 4 years, it's kept me alive, listening to the words and being part of that type of fellowship, just knowing it's there. It's a message that it's what I need, and I'm really grateful that y'all are, some of you are still here. Some of you, I think, were screaming over there, but I hope everything's okay. Do you want me to do something? It's a little more upbeat now, maybe. I hope.
No, just let's take it from
Let's walk, let's roll, let us advance our mortal bodies up where hearts and minds will go. Let's lead and behold, yes, progress within the peaceful test. reap what you sow. Yes, we keep our deepest love at hand, and never shall we let it go. Well, let's walk. Let's roll. You are the people of my heart and soul. I want the world to know you are the people of my heart and soul. I want the world to know. Let's walk. Let's roll. In step we bless togetherness from far and wide, from heel to toe, and we'll see. Yes, and we'll know. We climb that mountainside where seeds were planted, oh, so long ago. It's deep down below. With feet and hands aligned, we stand for love. Yes, love is what we show. Let's walk. Let's roll. You are the people of my heart and soul. I want the world to know you are the people of my heart and soul. I want the world to know. Let's walk. Let's roll. People of my heart, people of my heart and soul. I'm gonna bless togetherness. Come on, everybody. Yes, let's walk together. Let's roll, let's roll.
Give it up one more time for Madeline, all the way from Brooklyn. Sound amazing. Ooh. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? My name is Steph Reed, and I'm a grad student at Union Theological Seminary. Make some noise for that. And I'm a student of Dr. West. Give it up for Dr. West. I see a few of my Union Theological Seminary friends in the house. Shout out to them. I say that because as a volunteer, as someone who's part of this movement of love warriors, raise your hand if you're a love warrior in this audience. I want to see that I'm not alone. Put those hands high. I want to see I'm not alone. Look around you, guys. Everybody look to your left and look to your right. These are the love warriors that surround you. I come to this movement by way of Dr. West because Dr. West is a representation in his praxis, in his actual real life work. It matches up with his scholarship. It matches up with his political ideology. And I think that's really significant to note. There's so many ways in which we see candidates who give us lip service. And they don't necessarily align with their words. Their actions don't meet their words. But through the years, through the decades, we've seen Cornel West on the front line for various movements, standing for the least of these. Yeah, that's really, really important. Because the people that we choose to lead us, it's important that they practice what they preach. We want people to represent our values. And for me, Dr. Cornel West represents the values that I believe in, for a more just world, for a liberated society. That's right. Dr. West said, justice is what love looks like in public. He also said, raise your voice, don't be an echo. And it's important, it's imperative in this crucial moment, that we raise our voice, that we stand up for our values, that we raise our voice, that we cast our ballot for the people that we believe in to lead us. So I'm encouraging each and one of you to do the work, to do the messy, grueling, grunt work of standing for what you believe in, for fighting for your values, for getting behind the movement of truth, justice, and love. When I say Cornel, you say West. Cornel. Cornel. When I say Cornel, you say West. Cornel. Cornel. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Thank you. Next person I'm bringing to the stage is Vivian. Vivian, where were you at? Vivian, join us. Give it up for Vivian.
Thank you. I have been a huge Dr. West fan for many years. And from the first time that I heard him speak, I felt riveted by his passion, his sincerity, his intellect, and maybe most importantly, his way of conveying very important ideas in such a way that he speaks to everyone. There is no phoniness or politicking. His moral standing is clear and steady, and it doesn't change according to fashion or the weather. This was and is very refreshing and exhilarating to me. I was thrilled when Dr. West announced his presidential candidacy, and I wanted to support him. I was drawn to volunteer for this campaign for many reasons, but most of all, because of Dr. West's universal stance on human rights. As a child of a Holocaust survivor, growing up in a politically progressive home, this is of utmost importance to me. In closing, I'm excited about being a part of this campaign as a volunteer because I believe that Dr. West will work hard to create a more just and fair world, not just for some, but for everyone.
Make some noise. I'm excited about our next speaker, Kerwin. Guys, make some noise for the one, the only, Kerwin.
Hi, my name is Kervins, and I've been a part of this campaign for a couple of months now. First of all, I want to thank everybody for turning out. I am so impressed with how many of you guys have been dedicated these past couple of months and how many of you guys are here right now. So give it up for yourselves, first of all. Thank you. And you know, I just want to say a few things. First of all, I am part of, a couple of different minority communities, right? I'm Black, I'm part of the LGBT community, and there's a lot of different candidates that we've had over the years who pretended to care about us. A lot of us here know how many times we've had people say that, oh, we're going to do this for you, oh, we're going to do that for you. But right now in this race, there's only one person who's genuinely been fighting for our communities this whole time, and that's been Dr. West. You know, he has been here. He has been here genuinely standing up for us and for what empowers us as a people this whole time. When there's other politicians that are out to divide us, he's here to unify us. So we're here for unity, we're here for justice and peace, but most of all, we're here because we love one another as human beings. So let's spread the love. Thank you.
Make some noise one more time. When I say Cornel, you say West. Cornel, 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 Cornel. Well, it's lit. Give a round of applause for yourselves for being here. So the next person I'm bringing to the stage is a freedom fighter, is an activist, is an organizer, a leader, and a beacon of hope for all of us to stand on our values, to fight for what's right, and to live in your truth. Without any further ado, Chris Small.
Hey, give it up for yourselves, Harlem World. Well, thank you for having me here, brother. As you know, when you called me, I had to. It's only right. You showed up for my union, so it's only right that I return the favor. So thank you again. So, let me get right to business because I don't have a lot of time, and I know we all don't have a lot of time because time is running out. You know the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and getting the same results, right? And for many of decades, we've been promised and given a lot of things, but not really. We've been given a lot of breadcrumbs, a lot of Band-Aids, a lot of temporary fixes, a lot of lies, a lot of propaganda, right? A lot of divisiveness, a lot of misinformation. And at some point in time, we realized, damn, they've been feeding us a lot of bullshit out here. And I realized that 4 years ago when I was fired from Amazon. And the richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos, who's making $13 billion a day, $9 million an hour, almost $5,000 a second, spoke up about me, little old me, from Staten Island, New York, who stood up for COVID-19. And I know a lot of people like, well, damn, you don't look like a union president. It's because I wasn't. I was just a worker. So everybody here, guess what you are? You're a part of the working class too. And when I see what I did, and I say to my 20-year-old self, if I could look as cool as a rapper and being a union organizer, shit, I'd have been doing this a long time ago. And that's just a message for the youth. And when I look at these politicians, a lot of them, who y'all know, will show up to your rallies, show up to your events, show up and take the photo ops, tweet about it, share it on Instagram, do all of that fun stuff. But don't put nothing in black and white and legislative that's going to help us as a people have a better quality of life. And I realized that there ain't no cavalry coming for us. Let me tell you, I met your President Joe Biden. And let me tell you how that conversation went. I don't remember it. Yeah, I know. It's funny, but it's really not. Because this man is running the presidency. He's running the country. I don't really know who's making decisions in there, but I can tell you one thing for sure. When I left that White House that day, I felt empty. I felt like there's no hope. We got to do this ourselves. And that was 2 years ago, y'all. So as I sit here today and stand with y'all today, I'm gonna let you know, we need a president that's gonna represent the people. We need a president that's gonna show up every time, not just one time. We need a president that's gonna stand on business and represent, when I mean the people, the black and brown people that are always forgotten, the ones that are afraid to speak up, the ones that look like me. We need a president and politicians in office that don't remind me of dinosaurs. I'm sorry to say, there's a lot of dinosaurs in office. Y'all saw the State of the Union. Oof, it was bad. So what I'm saying is here today, make the right decision. Vote for somebody that you know will sit and stand with the people. Vote for somebody you know that have the policies that represent what you want in life. And most importantly, don't go insane and do the same thing. Because we already know those resorts on both sides of the aisle. It's a two-party system, and we need a third-party option. And Cornel West represents everything but that. And I'm going to shout out my sister, Abdullah, West Coast, LA, Black Lives Matter, LA. Every time I went out there, they showed me love. They took me right on in 4 years ago. Not 2 years ago when I won, but 4 years ago when I fought and stood up for Amazon workers. LA took me in. She was the first one I met. So I want to shout out them as well. Hey, listen, y'all. We're running out of time, and we really, really, really got to think about our future, our younger generation, our kids, our children. Our children should never have to fight as hard as we're doing right now. So I see a lot of Kafias in the crowd. You know what I'm saying? We got to stand up for Palestinian people. We got to stand up for the people of Congo. We got to stand up for the people of Haiti. We got to stand up for the people of Cuba, Africa, everywhere. And most importantly, we got to stand up for ourselves, because the revolution starts with ourselves. There's no amount of money in the world can amount to the power of people when we come together. I've proven that against Amazon. We're going to continue to fight, because you already know when we fight back, we what? When we fight back, we what? When we fight back? When we fight back? When we fight back? Every damn time. Power to the people. Love and solidarity, y'all. Thank you, brother.
Ain't no power like the power of the people, 'cause the power of the people don't stop. Ain't no power like the power of the people, 'cause the power of the people. Let's go. Louder. Louder! One more time. Make some noise for yourselves. The next person coming to the stage is an artist, is an activist, is a lyricist, true lyricist, and a leader. One could say they would live forever. One could say they are skilled with a crafted technique. Make a round of applause, nice and warm, robust, for Immortal Technique.
Check. 1 2 1 2. There's no. I was gonna give a long speech, but I decided to cut it short and share a personal anecdote between myself and Dr. West. He was teaching at Union Theological Seminary. This was maybe about 8 years ago, and I went to sit in on his class. You know, I live in Harlem. I lived here for most of my life. And we were having a conversation about the people who are who are gifted with melanin, who are written out of church history. And one of these individuals was a black pope named Galasius. And our conversation, I always remember it, was about how his theory was that you should never combine church and state, not because of the reasons that we've been told, because it will lead to the church one day corrupting the state. That's what we're always told. The church will corrupt the state if you combine them. But the conversation that me and Dr. West had was about Galasius' teachings, and he said, no, it'll happen the other way around. That's what happens when you combine church and state. It's the word of God that gets polluted by the politics of filth and conspiracy and sponsoring genocides and murder and every other thing that we let people get away with, that claim every day that they believe in God and get on the screen, on television and on the internet and propagate themselves as people of the book. We have 3 people right now that are running for office that I could look at: Mr. Trump, Mr. Biden, and Dr. West, and each one of them claims to be a Christian. One of them is a con artist that can't name a single Bible passage. The other one is another con man and a genocide supporter. And then we have a person here, a man of integrity, who isn't afraid to call a genocide, isn't afraid to tell the system it's corrupt to its face. So you have to ask yourself honestly, if Jesus was here, who would he vote for? Who would he say is propagating his message correctly? So you know me, some of you know me, I rap about all kinds of stuff. You didn't expect me to come here and talk about God and religion, but I have to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that we're manipulated every day by people who preach piety, and they sponsor the most horrific things behind closed doors. The horrors that we've seen in Gaza, that happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. There just wasn't social media like that back in 2001, 2006. And we didn't have the opportunity as a nation to be as disgusted and revulsed as everybody else. And we appreciate your voice, Dr. West, and we appreciate your courage and your leadership, because everybody else has left us out in the cold, and you stand there singularly, unafraid, unbowed, unbroken. And from the bottom of my heart, brother, we appreciate you. Thank you. My name is Immortal Technique, Harlem, New York. I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. God bless all of you. Please get home safe today. And you will, because this park is a lot safer than it was when it was Mount Marvis Park. So you'll be fine.
Give it up one more time for Immortal Technique. What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? Make some noise. Y'all still with me? Say yeah. Y'all still with me? Say oh yeah. Who's ready for a revolution? I said, who's ready for a revolution? This next person we're bringing to this stage is an esteemed academic, a scholar, someone who's not afraid to speak truth to power, to say the hard thing, someone who stood for the Palestinian people when it was not in vogue. I've watched this movement go from a marginal issue to becoming a national issue. And this person was from the beginning speaking truth to power. And that's significant. Give a round of applause for that. People that are able to put themselves on the front line in spite of what may come, take the repercussions, and be early on the movement. That's the kind of people that Dr. West attracts. People who are unafraid, people who are courageous, people who are heroic, people who are like outspoken and will do the right thing even when it's hard. So without any further ado, Give it up for Professor Norman Finkelstein. Thank you. One more time, give it up for Professor Norman Finkelstein.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm often asked why I'm supporting Dr. Cornel West, and this is as useful an occasion as any to clarify my opinion on the subject. I'm going to begin not with a formal history lesson, but with a personal one, which is to describe the world that I grew up in. Now, the world I'm about to describe applied to about 80% of Americans. I recognize that what I'm about to describe did not apply to about 20% of Americans, what the author Michael Harrington famously called the other America. And I read recently that Dr. West was acquainted with Michael Harrington on a personal basis. I myself was not. In any event, what did the world look like back then? Number one, schools were free. City University of New York, all of its units, Hunter College, Brooklyn College, Queens College, Staten Island College, and so forth, they were all free. There was no student tuition. The state universities, Binghamton, Albany, Stony Brook, Buffalo, and so forth, they were, for all intents and purposes, free. Most everybody received what was called back then a Regents Scholarship, and that meant you didn't have to pay tuition, and room and board was nominal. So, college was free. Even the private schools, like where Dr. West attended Harvard, my memory is, but he's the authority, not me, Harvard was $3,000 a year, which, even if you factor in inflation, is nowhere near where these schools are now. The bottom line was, school was free, which was not a trivial fact, not just because you may have come from a poor background, but because it was free, you were intellectually able to explore. You didn't feel like you were squandering hard-earned money if you took courses which seemed kind of eccentric, because it was all free. And so people were able to major in things like anthropology, sociology, English, and not have a debt when they came out. Nowadays, to jump ahead for a moment, that's no longer the case. Students are looking for a direct fit between the courses or their majors and a job after graduation. There is no longer any exploration, any intellectual inquiry permitted to this generation. So, schools being free, when you came out, there was no student debt. Now, when I say there was no student debt, I mean that literally. So, there were some students who did have to, who weren't able to make ends meet, and they took out what were called back then federal loans. However, here was the thing. All those students who took out loans, they all defaulted. The government didn't care. I know that for a fact, because I had friends who, they defaulted. There wasn't credit cards back then, at least not widely used. There wasn't a credit rating back then. And so the biggest burden of young people nowadays, if you walk arbitrarily with any young person nowadays, it doesn't take 10 minutes before the conversation comes around to student debt. That wasn't the case back then. Now, when we went to college, with the exception of pre-meds, I don't remember a single person ever talking about a job when they got out of school. We didn't think about that. Those college years were those grand entitlements to, as it was called back then, and I think it's a fair expression, to discover yourself. Because we were all confident that when we were ready to find a job, there would be a job there. There was never a fear back then that there wouldn't be a job waiting for you when you got out of school. And in fact, I can tell you, if you look at, say, my high school class, I had one friend, she wanted to go into theater. She ended up being a stage manager. Another friend wanted to do something with film. He ended up being a film festival impresario. And so on and so on. Several wanted to be actors. They became actors. What does that mean? No tuition, no debt. Discover yourself. There's a job out there, and there's a real likelihood that your dream could actually come true. It wasn't pie in the sky. Your dreams, as our society functioned for 80%, your dreams in our society were actually realizable. Now, the point I'm making is, I think, fairly obvious to anyone here, because for 80% of our society, those dreams are no longer realizable. For 20%, if you live in New York, if you're in what's called the professions, medicine, law, or if you're in finance or IT, yes, you will probably fall within that 20% who are making it. But if you aren't in those categories, there's no future in this society for you. It's a futureless future for about 80% of our society. I will add just one other personal anecdote. There was a period where I was working on my doctoral dissertation, and I needed an income to support myself. So I worked on 10th Avenue and 26th Street at a place called the Hudson Guild. It's a settlement house. And I worked with poor kids from the projects. I worked with them from 2 to 6 p.m. after school. Now, I was in the poorest union. It was all black and Latino women. And as you can imagine, I'm talking about the 1980s, exactly as you would expect, it was the poorest union in the city. But here's the bottom line. Number one, I earned enough from 4 hours. I worked from 2 to 6. I earned enough to keep my own apartment. No roommates. I lived in Washington Heights, Elwood and Nagel. Could still afford my own apartment. 4 hours a day. We had, I know this is going to sound like pie in the sky, given the world that most of you have inherited. The poorest union, we had sick days. We had vacation days. We had personal days. this vast accumulation of, so to speak, holiday time. There were so many days that when I finally left the job in 1987, when I got my degree, I had accumulated more than 100 days which I never used. That's what it was like back then. So, the first reason I'm here is because something is radically wrong with our society. The proportions have shifted from 80% being able to have a realistic prospect of realizing their dreams, or if not realizing their dreams, at least living a relatively decent and dignified life. The 20%, as Dr. West likes to call it, and here I'm just quoting him, the chocolate side of town, it was obviously very different. Just on a personal note, I've not discussed it with Dr. West. I was surprised to learn in reading about him that he said he finished Harvard in 3 years rather than 4 because of the tuition issue. And that did surprise me because I don't recall tuition being a problem back then. Yes, I would say I decided not to go to a good school because my father was a hard-working laborer. We counted our pennies, and I didn't feel it was fair to him. But on the other side, I didn't know that you could default. I didn't. That came later. So, I teach at Hunter College. I teach mostly first-generation immigrants, some white students. In this current class of 35, there are 3 white students. What we used to call, I don't know if the words are still used, we used to call them white ethnics, which meant Italian, Irish, from places like Bensonhurst and Staten Island. It's a very working class and school, Hunter. And what strikes me most in the students is it is true, and we should never quarrel with facts. It is true that their fundamental preparation, because of the grossly deteriorating schools, it is true the quality has declined in preparation. But the minds are still very nimble. They're very sharp. They're very critical. Last week, I invited the actress who's active on the Gaza issue. Some of you may know the older people in the room, Deborah Winger, to attend my class. And at the end of the class, I didn't tell them that she was observing. I said to her, "So what did you think of the class?" And I'm telling you the honest to God truth. She teared up, and she said, "It's moments like this that give me hope for the future." And that's the same with me. The people, what's been bequeathed to this younger generation is just grossly unfair. And there needs desperately to be people in public life who are articulating and are indignant at the unfairness of our system. And in my opinion, that is Dr. West. He articulates with remarkable eloquence, and he expresses his indignance at what this system has done to the new generations. Number 2, there is the argument that's made, and one has to take it seriously. There is the argument that's made that a vote for Dr. West is a vote for fascism, it's a vote for Trump, the two being synonymous, President Trump, former President Trump, and fascism. Now, one has to be, as I said, very cautious and responsible in answering that objection. My own view, and I don't claim I have a monopoly on truth, is I do recognize there is a difference between Biden and Trump in that regard. However, even though a triumph of Biden will not in itself and immediately usher in a catastrophe, as in fascism, the fact of the matter is, and I think I agreed with Dr. West, that even if that's not the immediate consequence of a Biden victory, it's simply going to be slowing a process, namely the fascist prospect. It will be slowing a process, but the process will still be underway. And I think the evidence is in that President Biden, should he be reelected, will not be a significant bulwark against or obstacle to the rise of a fascist movement in our country. That's not theoretical, because in the past 2 months, we personally witnessed the most fantastic assault on academic freedom and freedom of speech on our college campuses not seen since the early 20th century, when there was the workers' movements and the robber barons. There were the worker movements and the robber barons wanted to get some professors. It was just a handful. One fellow named Edward Ross, another fellow named Scott Nearing, wanted to get them fired. And it was at that point that the whole issue of academic freedom came up in our country. That's when the AAUP, the American Association of University Professors, all of that crystallized. Now, there has not been, since that time, an assault coming from the private sector and then compounded by the Republican right, an assault on academic freedom and free speech. Now, what did Biden do? You have to ask yourself, if you're truly concerned about the prospect of fascism in our country, what did Biden do? He didn't do anything. He went along with the claim that these campus demonstrations were anti-Semitic. He used every occasion to denounce anti-Semitism. And apart from a token phrase, I think it was at Morehouse, was the first time I heard it, apart from a token phrase talking about the right to disagree, he didn't do anything to block or present an obstacle to this fantastic assault on freedom of speech. So I simply don't believe that if and when, and it will happen, here again I agree with Dr. West, this fascist movement will gain more and more momentum as people's lives are futureless. I don't believe he will present an obstacle to that. And then the third reason is very simple. You can say horrible things about Mr. Trump. Mr. West, Dr. West, in my opinion, calls him a gangster, and that is the fact. But of the main existential issues facing our society at this moment, just at this moment, I recognize climate change, I recognize other things, but at this moment, the main threat is now coming, existential threat, is coming from the prospect of a terminal nuclear war. And on that front, honest people have to concede that President Biden and his administration have been a catastrophe, be it with regard to Russia, be it with regard to Israel, be it with regard to Iran. All of these are terminal events waiting to happen. And on all three, and I left out the most important, China. On Ukraine, Gaza, Iran, and China, these are terminal events waiting to happen, and President Biden is accelerating the move towards a terminal event waiting to happen. What Trump will do, I acknowledge, I can't predict. So it's a classic case of the fear of the known versus the fear of the unknown. But there's no doubt in my mind that on that particular front, namely the threat of nuclear war, he's a disaster. The administration is a disaster. One last thing, and then it's Dr. West Knight. I attended graduate school at the same time as Dr. West. I did not know him. When he started to achieve stardom, which I would say roughly in the 1990s, when he joined what was called at the time the Harvard Dream Team, I frankly admit I was very skeptical and suspicious, because I don't believe people get into those dizzying heights of power without having accumulated a large number of skeletons in their closet. However, and there is a however, recently I did a very long interview with Dr. West, and in preparation for it, I sat down and I started to read books that he's written on his recommendation. And I have to say, his range of knowledge, but not just the range, it's the depth. A lot of people, we have an expression in English, you say of many individuals, they're a mile wide, but an inch deep. Well, you know what? Dr. West is a mile wide and a mile deep. He does know the details. I was watching the other night his Guilford lectures, and he's hurling out one name, and the second name, and the third name, and the fourth name, and quoting this passage. I said, okay, I give up. I give up. My ego is now so shattered and so battered that there's no ego left to even complain or be envious. He is a real class act. When he got those degrees, he clearly earned those degrees from hard work. So, I do believe, with the possible exception of Theodore Roosevelt, should he become president, he would be the most learned president in our American history. It's very impressive. I won't speak to his political track record, because people already know that. But the bottom line is, it's not a tough choice for me this year, and probably in any other year, except the Bernie years, but Dr. West was on board with Bernie. It's not a tough decision for me to say Dr. Cornel West for president. Thank you.
Give it up for Professor Norman Finkelstein, who I watch all the time on Bad Faith on YouTube, so it's an honor. If y'all don't mind, I want to take a selfie. Y'all feeling good? Say yeah. I don't know about that. Let's try one more time. Y'all feeling good? Say yeah. Y'all feeling good? Say, oh yeah. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. If we don't get it, 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 what do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? If we don't get it, 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 what do we want? When do we want it? What do we want? When do we want it? If we don't get it, 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 Lord, if we don't get it, if we don't get it, make some noise for yourselves. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I come here by way of my mother, Camille DeJourna, my father, Stephen Reed, my great uncle, Ewart Grenier, and my mom's first cousin, Lonnie Grenier. And it was in my first semester at Union Theological Seminary where Dr. West informed me that he knew my great uncle, Ewart Grenier, that he protested with my uncle, Ewart Grenier, while at Harvard. That gave me confidence to go through the path of academia and to raise my voice and to not be an echo. And it is because of Dr. West that I have the strength, that I have the confidence to stand on this stage and speak to you powerfully right now with all the faith and all the confidence and all the hope that I know that Dr. West is a person that we can put our faith in. So I think you know what time it is. When I say Cornel, you say West. Cornel. 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 Louder. Cornel. 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 Make some noise. Man, this is what love looks like in public. So, Dr. West, it's an honor, it's a privilege, it's a dream come true to honor you. So, without any further ado, the great, the honorable, the genius, Dr. Cornel West.
Blessing, blessing, blessing. Oh, you all have been so patient. I salute each and every one of you. Give yourselves a hand. We're here in Harlem. Indeed, indeed. When I got here, I had no idea I would see my dear brother Charles Barron. Charles Barron is a great legend in the history of struggle of not just black people, but oppressed people all around the world. And his organization was the first organization to endorse this campaign. This is Charles Barron, Inez Barron. They go hand in hand. We met 415 Atlantic Avenue at House of Lord Pentecostal Church, Reverend Herbert Daltrey of the National Black United Front. And I want him to say hello and a word before I proceed. Brother, I love you, man.
I love you too, Dr. Cornel. Well, let's give Dr. Cornel a big hand clap. This is my brother for 44 years.
44 years.
So I bring you greetings from the People's Republic of Brooklyn, where Operation Power has taken over. We are the governors of Brooklyn. We got hundreds and hundreds of signatures for Dr. Cornel West, and we're focusing on, let's give our champions a real big hand clap. You know, every campaign has to have a Black Power advocate, and that's me. Say Black Power. Black Power. Say Black Power like you mean it. Brothers and sisters, the black vote will no longer be taken for granted. Nobody has any votes right now. So you can't take votes from anybody because they don't have any votes now. Everybody has to earn our vote. And we will determine who should be the ones that earn our vote. The brother was talking about fascism. For black people, fascism started when the country started. For black people, when we resisted enslavement, fascism suppressed it. For black people today, Biden's fascism has arrested and indicted the Uhuru Three for saying they don't want to support Ukraine. Fascism is when they resist. All resistance movements are violently suppressed. The Black Panther Party, which I was a part of, suffered fascism from COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program of the FBI. So when we talk about fascism, it didn't start with Trump, just like the war on the Palestinian people didn't start October 7th, 2024, or 2023. So when did that start? Well, we could go back, but brothers and sisters, I came here to support Dr. Cornel West. And you know, someone asked me, well, Charles, do you think he could win? I said, we already won. By running, we won. We will define what victory is. And the reason why we're tight with Dr. Cornel West's campaign, because when this campaign is over for the presidency, we're going to continue to get people elected to the city council, to the state assemblies, to the state senates across this country. We already won because we define victory. Dr. Cornel West is all yours. I just wanted to come up, and I'm also known as Mr. Inez Barron. That is my wife, and she's in charge of things. So on behalf of Inez, and y'all listen to our program on WBAI. It's called Speaking Truth to Power. Inez and I host that. Dr. Cornel West and Sister Melinda will be on with us on the 31st, so from 5 to 6, WBAI. Dr. Cornel West, it's all yours. We love you, brother.
Oh, I love you, though, brother. Lord. Indeed. Oh, yes, I'm just so very blessed to be here, and you can tell that even though it is getting late, it's still early because our hearts are still full of fire. I want to begin by thanking those who have worked so very hard to go out to get those signatures, and I'm looking at them right now. You've been working so hard, I know you have, and you have an impact in a mighty way. And all of the various artists that we heard from, I don't have all the names, but you see, I come from a people whose anthem is lift every voice, not lift every echo. And we didn't hear any echoes here, expressions of silos. We heard voices of people who have digged deep into the dark corners of their own soul and come to terms with their wounds and bruises and scars and transfigure them in such a way that they say and do and make a sound that touch our souls so that we leave here more fortified. That's the tradition that this campaign is all about. And it's no accident that we are here where we are. We're in here in Harlem, USA. And I met my dear sister outside. When I came in, she tears flowing down her face. She said, oh, taking over my neighborhood. This gentrification is just flowing every which way. What we gonna do? I said, my dear sister, you know we come from a folk who straighten our backs up no matter what the situation is and tell the truth and seek justice and acknowledge that this is Marcus Messiah Garvey Park. And this is the same Garvey who said in 1916, was just still in his 20s after founding the UNIA in Jamaica in his mid-20s. He said, the world has made being black a crime. I intend to make it a virtue. Yes, that's a critique of a vicious legacy of white supremacy. And that legacy grounded in predatory capitalist processes that make their moves in stealing land from other peoples and committing genocide in those peoples on that land in the New World. We haven't got to Gaza yet. That's genocide here. And then brings working people from all around the world and subjugates them and exploits them no matter what color they are, because the priority is profit, 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 rather than satisfying the basic needs of those Sly Stone called everyday people. And then the vicious forms of patriarchy that lose sight of the rich humanity of the majority of humankind who are our sisters of different colors and countries. The ugly forms of homophobia and transphobia, so that a genius who grew up just around the corner named James Baldwin, the son of Harlem, a genius who would transform the essay from Montaigne all the way through Emerson, all the way through an Edmund Wilson, and say, yes, I'm going to dip this genre, this essay, into the doings and sufferings of black people in such a way that it's going to have a rhythm and a polyrhythm and a syncopation and a sophistication and a gut bucket funk that the world has never seen on the page. That's where we are. Harlem. Give it up for Harlem. Give it up for Harlem. Give it up for Garvey. Give it up for James Baldwin. The great Sonny Rollins grew up right around the corner. Lorraine Hansberry office right across the street. Raising in the sun. This place is consecrated even before we got here for many, many generations of struggle. In this campaign, I don't even call it my campaign. I happen to be a public face of the campaign, but I'm nothing but a little small wave in a great ocean of a great people, of a great tradition of struggle. But in the face of overwhelming hatred for 450 years, we keep dishing out love warriors every generation, and that's why we call the love warriors. That's not just a phrase. That's not just a name. That's the spirit of Immortal's mama when she looked on her baby in Robert's Temple Church of God in Christ in August of 1955 in Chicago. And the whole world, it cast a light on Brother Emmett, 14 years old, killed by cowardly terrorist white supremacists in Mississippi. And dropped his body in the Tallahatchie River. They had to scoop it up. And when she stepped to that lectern with tears in her eyes, what did she say to the world? She said, I don't have a minute to hate. I will pursue justice for the rest of my life. What goes into the shaping and molding of that kind of moral and spiritual greatness where you intend always to fight, always to swing, always to be resilient, always to resist, but do it in the name of a love and justice that begins on your side of town, in your family, your neighborhood, your tradition, but embraces oppressed people all around the world. That's the tradition that I come from. And I intend to be faithful unto death. I don't care how popular or unpopular. I don't care what name you call me, anti-Semitic, anti-American, whatever the name is, I'll learn and I'll listen, I'll critically filter it, and then I'll look and say, Harriet Tubman, what do you have to say? Frederick Douglass, what do you have to say? Martin King, what do you have to say? Malcolm, what do you have to say? Ella Baker, what do you have to say? Fannie Lou Hamer, what do you have to say? And I ain't even got to the vanilla side of the struggle. And I know my dear brother Norman, who has such a deep love relationship with the one and only Paul Robeson. Give it up for Paul Robeson. Brother Paul, W.B. Du Bois, what do you have to say? Benjamin Elijah Mays, what do you have to say? Noam Chomsky, Edward Said, what do you have to say? Can we put a smile on your face to muster the courage to tell the truth? So this campaign is nothing but a moment in a movement. It's the spillover of the love warriors. It's the spillover of the freedom fighters in the face of the terrorism that my brother Charles Barron was talking about. It's the spillover of the joy shares in the face of sorrow that Aretha Franklin's and Luther Vandross said. The main ingredient grew up right around the corner. Donald McPherson died at 22 years old, and here come Cuba Gooding Sr. Brother Jim Farrells know what I'm talking about. Sharing that joy in the face of overwhelming sorrow. Wounded healers in the face of unbelievable trauma. That's what this campaign is about. And in so many ways, it's an attempt to reintroduce the country to the best of itself. That if you want to understand the best of the country, you're going to have to be in contact with folk who choose integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, unbelievable courage, cutting against the grain in the world but not of the world, looking for something bigger than them, beyond their narcissism, beyond their hedonism, beyond the rapacious individualism, creating solidarity, creating community, and doing it in such a way that you still got a smile on your face and a little style in your walk. My dear sister Madeline knows what I'm talking about. Oh, yes, she does. Spending all that time with Brother Danny Fitzgerald. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. The Lost Wandering Blues and Jazz Group. You and Vanilla Sister rooted with the chocolate ones because it's human all the way down. But we have to be able to be honest enough to come to terms with the forms of hatred coming at us. And in order to deal with this present moment, this is a moment in which the American empire is imploding with forms of spiritual decay and moral decadence. There's been 70 empires since the emergence of the species in Africa. United States is number 68. Every empire comes, every empire goes, and oftentimes it has to do with military outreach, just like the United States, $62 for every one discretionary dollar going to the military. 800 military units around the world, 130 special operations around the world. Why? Because those in Washington believe in a full spectrum dominance. We must dominate every corner, every nook and cranny of the world. That's not just an imperial empire, it's an imperial policy. And every empire will collapse. And we are witnessing that implosion, that decay, that decadence, where the organized greed so intimately connected to the institutionalized hatred. So you get to routinize indifference toward the suffering of others. The great Rabbi Heschel used to say, indifference to evil is more insidious than evil itself. And so much of our culture is an attempt to create structures of feeling and value such that people are indifferent to those who are suffering. That's why there hasn't been a stress on poverty since Martin Luther King Jr. was shot down like a dog in Memphis when he talked about poverty, white supremacy, militarism, and materialism being the four factors that would bring the American empire to an end. That's Brother Martin, 39 years old in Memphis. And here we are now, well, 50-some years later, dealing with the blowbacks. Malcolm X used to speak right around the corner here on 125th and 7th. He would say, chickens come home to roost. Chickens come home to roost. And what does chickens coming home to roost mean? It's the blowback that comes when you deny. The American empire is distinctive and unique. Ooh, watch the dog, watch the dog, watch the dog there. You all right? You all right with the dog? All right. But America is unique among all empires because America views itself as innocent. Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire. No empire in the history of the world has viewed itself as innocent. James Baldwin used to say that innocence itself is a crime. Because the authorizers of devastation who view themselves as innocent never want to take responsibility. That's precisely why, in the midst of poverty, worker subordination, vicious forms of white supremacy, decrepit schools, inadequate housing, or sometimes no housing available at all with escalating unhousedness and homelessness. No serious focus on it. No responsibility, no accountability as the greed intensifies at the top. 1% of the population, 90% of the wealth they have. 3 individuals in the country have wealth equivalent to 160 million fellow citizens. 50% of the country have wealth equivalent to 3 persons. Now, if that's not spiritually sick and morally decadent, I don't know what is. But where is the collective fight back? Where's the collective fight back? And what is distinctive about Gaza, very much like what happened in the 80s with the apartheid regime in South Africa, very much like Vietnam in the 60s, we rip the veil off and you discover how the lies have been hiding the crimes. All the talk about liberty and democracy, we see criminality, bestiality, and barbarity. All the talk about international law and human rights, can't say a mumbling word about defending 15,000 children murdered in a matter of months. No other litmus test could be more clear than what we see. And that's why this moment is in so many ways unprecedented. They say we're so polarized, yes, we're gangsterized, yes. There are certain lies that are becoming so unbelievably difficult to deny. The innocence is being revealed to be itself a lie. So when Biden says it's not a genocide, he's been a genocide enabler, now he's a genocide denier. That makes him a war criminal. Because he himself is not just enabling, it would not take place if he were not providing that kind of military and financial support. Oh, that sounds so harsh. I'm not hating on the brother, I'm just telling the truth. And it has much to do with us, because it's not just him. It's Harris, it's Kirby, it's Sullivan, it's Greenfield, it's Austin, it's the Democratic Party across the board, the Republican Party across the board. Where are the churches? Where are the synagogues? Where are the mosques? Well, the mosque has been much better than many other religious institutions indeed. But this level of not just conformity and complacency, but outright cowardliness in the face of not just war crimes and crimes against humanity, but the crime of genocide. If you can't meet that test, then it's clear that we don't have any moral fiber in our political class. That all of them, for the most part, too many of them for the most part, are so willing to be preoccupied with the next election and who's voting for X or Y than the precious people who themselves are being crushed every day before our very eyes. And Biden himself, what he said in Detroit the other day, he said, I probably had a black person writing a speech for him, but he said, well, what would America have done if they were black folk who broke into the U.S. Capitol January 6th? And of course, black folk raised that question the same day we saw it. Would have been massive attack, massive assault. Because white supremacy is still operating. But then we come right back to Biden and say, what would you do if 40,000 white brothers and sisters were being murdered in the name of a genocide by Arabs or Muslims or Africans or black people? And we know the tragic answer to that question. There would be such immediate solidarity with those white folk who are undergoing such genocidal assault. So there's a white supremacist dimension of what is going on in Gaza that we must be explicit about, because it goes hand in hand with the ways in which white supremacy is operating in the United States. The double standards, the overwhelming hypocrisy. And there's no accident that Biden talks about it not being a genocide, because those international courts could be on their way to his house. Just like it should have been on the way to Nixon's house and a whole host of other presidents and political elites. And this is not a matter of moral purity. It's a matter of pointing out overwhelming hypocrisy if you actually have a deep concern about precious people, no matter who they are. In this case, precious Palestinian men, women, and children, disproportionately women and children who are being murdered daily. And if America can't meet that litmus test, you can be assured you can never depend on any politician in regard to any issue of justice, be it at home or any other part of the world. And that needs to be said over and over and over again, and it's going to be shocking. I go through airports. I was just in Scotland yesterday, as my brother mentioned, just made it back and went to the reparations conference in Washington, D.C., and spoke last night and was there. My dear brother, how you doing? Good to see you there, man. God bless you. Abyssinian Baptist Church represented right there. My dear brother Calvin Butts, who we love, passed. But they run into him in the airport. They say, Brother West, I don't know why you just always so full of indignation. Why are you mad all the time? You got all of this rage inside of you. Why don't you just settle back and, I guess, have a little cognac or something? What's the problem? And I said, no, you see, I was raised and reared a certain way. To tell the truth, the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. To pursue justice. And because justice is what love looks like in public and tenderness is what love feels like in private, you attempt to be a loving and a tender person. And I come from a rich tradition of a black people and a black tradition who have always connected toughness with tenderness. That's why Otis Redding can sing, try a little tenderness 1 minute and get funky the next. Because they go hand in hand if you are a love warrior. A love warrior. And people say, oh, Brother West, love has no role in politics whatsoever. What's all this talk about tenderness and sweetness and gentleness? I said, no, I'm going to be true to my tradition, and I come from a soulful people, and soul ain't nothing but the sharing of a soothing sweetness against the backdrop of grim catastrophe. There's nothing wrong with sharing sweetness in a movement tough about truth and committed to justice. And so when the country has to make a choice between a bona fide gangster, we got our little precious one here with her stick, a bona fide gangster like Trump, and the choice between war criminal, genocide denier, genocide enabler, Biden, what are we going to do? Well, I come from a people in 1837, Henry Highland Garnett brought together the first gathering of free black people. It's in Philadelphia. And he said, black people, let us never confuse our situation with that of the Israelites of Hebrew scripture. For black people, Pharaoh is on both sides of the bloody Red Sea. Brother Kevin, you know what I'm talking about, brother. How you going to deal with Pharaoh on both sides of the bloody Red Sea? You're going to have to fight to make a way out of no way. People are going to tell you you have the chance of a snowball in hell. That's what they told Sojourner Truth. She said, do you know what my last name is? It's Truth. Truth crushed the earth will rise again. No lie can live forever. No matter what is said, no matter what kinds of attacks and assaults they put on you, we will find a way out of no way. Working people found a way out of no way given the greediness of capital and the greediness of bosses. They came together, they organized, they mobilized, they were solidarity. They had solidarity not just with each other, but with around the world. So I'm running for president in order to be head of the empire, in order to dismantle the American empire. I am an anti-imperialist candidate across the board. In the name of Alambe Lumumba, my dear brother who comes right out of this great community. Never forget that, brother. Always on fire as an anti-imperialist. Voices inside of oneself. And part of the afterlife of those voices has to do with the life that we live and the voices and the witnesses that we give the world. So I'm abolitionist about poverty. Absolutely. I don't want a liberal version of dealing with poverty. We can abolish poverty. They just authorized $200 billion for F-35s, 20 of them. That money could be transferred in such a way that we could wipe out poverty with basic income, with a right, human housing as a right, health care as a right, supporting the militant wing and the trade union movement to make sure that the trade union movements themselves don't become so accommodated to the bosses that they give up on making the stronger, crucial demands so that workers can live lives of decency. Dealing with the fossil fuel greed, the greed of the fossil fuel companies at the top that are inseparable to sit at the center of the ecological crisis, making it difficult to make the shift from extractive economies to regenerative ones. We can go on and on and on. But if we don't get ourselves together, if we don't get our souls together, if we don't get fortified enough, the muster, the courage to tell the truth, the courage to organize, the courage to sustain our struggle. Remembering what Martin King said when he said, I'd rather be dead than afraid. And Mary Ellen Pleasant said when she said, I'd rather be a corpse than a coward. That's what love warriors do. That's what you all have been doing. We just got North Carolina yesterday. Just got North Carolina yesterday. Oh yes, we on the move. And North Carolina means the world to me because that's John Coltrane country. That's a love supreme. That's Giant Steps. That's After the Rain country. Yes, indeed. So the question becomes, will we be fortified? Will we fight together? Will we stay together? Will we struggle together? Even if we have disagreements, we have to have a commitment deeper than the disagreements, because the focus is on the suffering of precious people to make sure that their lives are such that they can live them with decency and dignity. That's what we are about. That's what we are about. And the only way you do that is have a moral and spiritual backdrop and a moral and spiritual spine. And don't let folk divide and conquer. I tell the story all the time. People come up to me, say, Brother West, I'm so glad to be your white ally. I said, my white what? Your white ally. I said, oh, well, let me tell you a story. There's a brother named Jerry used to play the drums for Sly and the Family Stone. They were right here in this park in 1969, a few months after Woodstock. The Questlove just put in a film. And if you look at Sly, you saw Vanilla Brother playing the drums. And when Sly says, I want the drummer song, he didn't say, we're going to have a white ally play the drummer song. No, the white brother's in the band. He's in the band. He's not a white ally. When you're in the band, that's part of the solidarity. You already have earned your space. He hits the drummer song, and then Larry Graham hits the bass. Then Sly hits the organ. And same is true with Miles Davis, with Bill Evans. He's a white brother on the piano. You think Miles is going to turn to Gil and say, we're going to have a piano solo by the white ally? No, he's a white brother in the goddamn band. When you're in the band, you've already earned your spot because you sacrifice, because you're willing to pay it all. That's what this campaign is about. Thank you all for being here. Stay strong. Stay strong. We are changing the world. We're going to continue to change the world. Nobody's going to discourage us. Nobody's going to try to beat us down. Brother Steph, thank you so much for your magnificent work, and all of you who are here. God bless you. Thank you very much. And Sister Corey, Lord have mercy, we thank my dear sister, Sister Corey. Indeed.
So that was Dr. Cornel West bringing down the house as usual. So I'll be trying to talk to people, get some interviews, smash that like button, share this live stream. I actually already interviewed Dr. West earlier, which we'll be posting probably tonight or tomorrow. He said quite some incredible things. So hang tight while I try to get some folks to interview. Smash that like button. I interview?
Yeah.
While I'm interviewing a couple of people. How's it going, man? We're live.
How's it going?
Good. Let me know when. So I'm here with Edwin.
Yes.
And I've talked to you a couple times. You've been out there as an activist here in New York for a while, and you've been working on a Dr. West campaign. So talk to us first. Obviously, mainstream media is not focused on ballot measures, ballot access. The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, trying to keep you off the ballot.
Yes.
Tell us about what it's been. You're on 7 ballots now, including North Carolina. You just got enough signatures yesterday. A lot of people on the left are wondering, we love Dr. West, but can he get on, enough ballots to even compete?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, North Carolina is a prime example of how strong we are when we have volunteer strength, people who come out in the droves collecting signatures. To form a new party in North Carolina, you need at least almost 14,000 signatures. We nearly doubled that requirement so that we had the valid amount. So that is a big sign of a strength. That actually puts us on parallel with campaigns that have a lot more money, like the Kennedy campaign, for example. I mean, what we're doing with less funds, grassroots fundraising, and the output that we have is kind of unprecedented, at least in modern political history. And I think that it doesn't just end with states like North Carolina, Utah, where we're also on as an independent, Colorado. I mean, these are big states. We're going to get on battleground states as well. We're going to be on the ballot in Michigan. We're going to be on the ballot in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and we're going to have a serious influence on the outcome of this election.
I want to get back to ballots, but you brought up RFK, and I actually tweeted about this earlier. RFK seems a little politically slippery to me. I mean, I won't get into his thoughts on medicine, but he apparently bought a lot of shares in GameStop, which was obviously the stock that, soared last year. But he says he bought a bunch of stock in GameStop as a symbol that he's going to take on Wall Street. Yet right now he's getting a shit ton of money from really, really wealthy Trump donors, among other right-wingers. So he's going to take on Wall Street while he's simultaneously getting a lot of money from wealthy right-wingers. What are your thoughts on RFK's message that he's somehow going to take on Wall Street and the wealthy?
Well, look, I mean, I can only speak on what Dr. West is going to fight for, and I'll let him comment on his opponents and his adversaries. But what I will say, the biggest thing that defines us from other campaigns like that of Kennedy is the fact that we have people who are putting blood, sweat, and tears out to collect these signatures, and they're doing it in a completely grassroots way. That transcends the typical paid canvassing efforts that you'll see in a lot of these bigger campaigns. And what we have that's also unique to our campaign are these minor parties who are interested in creating affiliations with Brother West and nominating him onto his ballot. I know that the Kennedy campaign has done that in California, but we've done it in Alaska, we've done it in Oregon, we've done it in South Carolina, and we've done it in Colorado and Vermont as well. So the fact that there are so many minor parties that we are uplifting speaks to the fact that Dr. West is truly the anti-establishment candidate in this race.
And obviously the Democratic Party, and particularly President Biden, would really be worried if he got on the ballot in those critical states: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, the core swing states. Dr. West I spoke with, he believes you're going to be on the ballot in as many as 40 states by October. Can you talk about your progress in those swing states right now? Do you need more volunteers in those swing states? And what's the progress on ballot access in those swing states?
Well, we could absolutely always use more volunteers, and you can sign up by going to cornelwest2024.com/volunteer. We also have a ballot access map on the website where you can see in each state what the requirement is and how you can get plugged in with our petitioning leads in each state. And I can speak for Michigan, which is what we have our eye set on next. We are on the ground in Michigan, and we're collecting thousands of signatures, and I think that we'll be able to announce that within the next month or so. And I think that's going to really be a paradigm shift in the mainstream media's willingness to accept Dr. West's campaign as serious and viable and as an actual threat to the Biden-Trump establishment.
And you think you might have enough signatures in about a month or so in Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, the deadline is in July, so we are in crunch time, but I do think that we'll be able to surpass. I mean, our goal always is to collect double the amount of what is required so that when we inevitably get challenged, even if signatures get thrown out, which they always do, that we still have the valid amount. And that is definitely going to happen in those battleground states, and that's going to change the course of history.
That was actually my next question, because a lot of people don't realize, I mean, the Democratic Party, they got a multi-million-dollar network of an army of lawyers to try and challenge democracy, to try and challenge if you get on the ballot in Michigan, to try and muddy the waters, throw muck at it. Obviously, you don't have millions of dollars in lawyers, but do you guys have kind of contingency plans for if the DNC comes at you and tries to, basically contest those signatures?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the DNC is going to try whatever tricks they can. They have those army of lawyers. In a worst case scenario, if they find some sort of loophole where they try to kick us off the ballot, I mean, we're still going to pursue him running in those states. It'll just have to be as a write-in. But we're trying to minimize the amount of states in which we're going to do that. And there are lawsuits that are happening around the country, including New York. There was one actually filed today from some Buffalo organizers who challenged the deadline requirement. Now, back in before 2020, it only used to be 15,000 signatures. Now it's 45,000 within a 6-week window. That's actually getting challenged and might go to court, and it's very possible that we could see that either the deadline being extended or the signature account requirement being reduced, which would definitely help to our own benefit.
What's your message to folks on the left who love Dr. West, but now that Dr. Jill Stein is in the race, they feel like they're pulling from each other, wanted them to come together. Not for you to, challenge Jill Stein, but why should leftists who want a third-party option vote for Dr. West over Jill Stein?
Well, I think the Justice for All party is personally exciting to me because it is so brand new, and that means that we can actually shape it today in 2024, where the world is very much different than when a lot of the more traditional traditional third parties began years ago. So if you have people, young people, particularly from Generation Z like myself, who are the leaders of a new party, you might see a trajectory that might be a lot more accelerated. And I think in New York in particular, I mean, all Dr. West needs is 2% of the vote, and there's a Justice for All party, and local people can run for office here with minimal signatures required. And to me, that's very exciting. Unfortunately, the Greens, they lost their ballot access when Governor Cuomo eliminated it back in 2020, along with many others. And we fight for voter choice. We fight for third-party candidates to be on the ballot. But we feel confident that our Justice for All movement is something that's going to last election cycles beyond 2024.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. So that's Edwin with Dr. West's campaign. As you can see, they're all trying to talk to Cornel West over there. So this, again, is in Harlem at a big amphitheater. Let me see if I can get some other folks to talk to. You want to get Norm before this? Yeah, I'll try. Smash that like button, share this live stream so we can get more people watching this. Again, Cornel West got on the ballot in North Carolina yesterday, so that makes 7 states. And from my interview with him earlier, he believes they will be on the ballot in as many as 40 states by October, which, if that actually happens, that would be a big deal. Let me see who else I can get.
Sign over there. This is for the signatures over there.
He's listening to you. Oh, probably, yeah.
Nadine, can you take a picture?
Glad to see you, my brother. Good to see you, my dear. So, I want to see this brother right I can see that.
Hold on one second. Hold on one second. We're just in the mosh pit of admirers to Cornel West. Smash that like button, share this live stream. Again, this is in Harlem, up in New York City. From what I was told today, Donald Trump, of all people, will be here later this week in the Bronx.
In Brooklyn. I remember this afternoon. Like years ago, not about Charlie Hebdo, but for the Gaza, is there any chance to reach in
I'm waiting for an interview right now, so hold on. While we wait, remember, folks, we need your support. We have been on the ground covering a lot of things lately. John has been on the ground covering the ceasefire protests, over 50 of them he has covered in New York and D.C. So the more support we could get from you, the more we could fund. So please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member for $5 a month. StatusCoup.com/join.
I am planning to drive to South Florida. Like that.
Can I interview you?
Sure.
Come on. John, what's your name?
My Christian name is Frank Richard.
Awesome. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but this fine Frank Richard was rapping earlier, opening the show. Tell me about what kind of has drawn you to Dr. West.
Well, you know what? Dr. West himself is an amazing poet. He's an amazing academic. He's a great thinker. And I remember years ago he introduced me to Lupe Fiasco, which that only kind of opened my mind into music and the sound. And literally that's the root of what we are. If you go back all the way to like Genesis, God said, "Let there be light." And then there was light, and we've even scientifically proven that we collapse a little like air bubble in a vacuum with sound, like a specific vibration. Boom, it creates a spark of light, and we don't know how to scientifically explain that, aside from it's an unknown phenomenon. Yeah.
So you're drawn not just to his policies and politics, but the spiritual nature.
I love how someone's saying something about the genocide that's going on. Like I would say I would support like Robert F. Kennedy and Dr. West coming together, and maybe even Trump sitting down like a statesperson and actually resolving some of the issues. There's so many problems right now. We need to come together as people with proper decorum and really discuss and solve some of the issues, or else we're just going to stay in the same political cycle that I think Dr. West is hoping to break that narrative, that two-party, even everything is bipartisan. If something is neutral, it's bipartisan. So there's admission of a two-party system, and I think everyone knows that by default anyway.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for being here, man.
Absolutely. So, okay, cool. Smash the like button, share this live stream. It's always tough to do interviews here because people you want to interview keep getting interrupted by other people. So hang with me. But this is Norman Finkelstein, obviously very, very well-known academic, and has been speaking out long before October 7th against Israel's occupation, among other things, against the Palestinians. So. Hey, Norman Finkelstein, who obviously has been very outspoken long before October 7th, but more ferociously since October 7th. We'll get to October 7th and the fallout, but I wanted to ask you really spoke on stage, particularly about Dr. West, on domestic issues, how back in the day, people actually had a future. You didn't have to worry after graduating college if you'd get a job, and how there is no future right now. Can you kind of expand on that? Because you don't really hear that talked about. All you hear about is the quote-unquote strong economy from the media.
For about 80% of young people, they exist on this thing called a gig economy, which means 2 or 3 jobs with no benefits, no future, totally meaningless work that brings no personal gratification and doesn't bring sufficient material compensation that at least you can have the minimum in life and some amenities. My father was a factory worker, so he got no gratification from his work, but he was able to.
Brother Noam, thanks so much, my brother.
Interrupted by Cornel West. That's all right. Hang tight, smash the like button, share this live stream. Cornel West is commiserating with Norman Finkelstein.
Really, to have you here, and of course Anahita says hello. Because you know you one of her favorites too, just like me. Both of us. Love you though, brother. Stay strong now.
So, I knew exactly who you were.
He got no gratification from his work, but he had 3 sons. They all went to excellent schools. They all got a college education. And they all worked. They all found employment very quickly. Me was a little more problematic. But I never worried about a roof over my head. I never worried about food. I never worried about paying bills. And I was never in debt. I went all the way through to the PhD. And apart from $3,000 that I borrowed from my mother, apart from $3,000, I never had a cent of student debt. So the world that young people have been born into is so cruel and so depressing that it's not an accident, in my opinion, that probably a majority and maybe a supermajority of young people are on antidepressants, because these shrinks try to convince them that the problem is a chemical imbalance in their head, when the problem is there's no point in getting up in the morning. It's just so gray and grim.
Speaking of no point in getting up in the morning, obviously we know right now, the experts are saying there's widespread famine already in Gaza, but instead of being outraged about that, there's a bipartisan revolt today against the ICC. What are your thoughts? Because it seems kind of outrageous if the ICC issues search warrants for Vladimir Putin, maybe some darker skinned leaders in Africa. The Democratic and Republican Party rejoice, but they're basically huffing and puffing that they will do sanctions or invade the ICC. What does that say about our so-called democracy?
Well, to be a little bit sober about this, the record of the ICC is so horrendous. A very senior international expert, whose name I'd rather not give because he'll end up causing him problems, he once said to me, the ICC is not a court. It used to be called not the International Criminal Court, but the International Caucasian Court, because it only indicted African leaders. Probably each of the indictments was merited, but there's ample choices from the West, beginning with the architects of the invasion of Iran in 2003, when even Kofi Annan, the Secretary General of the UN, when he was asked, he said it was an illegal war. He used those words. It was an illegal war. Well, there was an illegal war, and the estimates are very high. Could be as many as 1 million people were killed. So there were ample persons to choose from the West to indict. So the record of the ICC is absolutely horrendous. If you asked me why Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor, why he issued this statement, which still has to be confirmed by the judges in the court, I would say the pressure became probably unbearable, and he lost all credibility, because every international agency
Getting a nice intermission from the Star Spangled Banner.
I prefer Whitney Houston. Every international agency was saying that not only was there famine, but everybody from Joseph Borrell, the foreign policy chief of the EU, to the Secretary General of the UN, Guterres, to Human Rights Watch, and to a score of other individuals, they were all saying it's a man-made famine. Or as Bet Selem, the Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the occupied territories, put it about 3 weeks ago, they said it's a manufactured famine. Now, the only result of a manufactured or man-made famine can be mega deaths. Exactly how many people have already died, I think it's a very mysterious question, and I don't know if the numbers that we're being given right now are accurate. I'm dubious of the accuracy of the numbers, but in the face of that, it was very hard for Karim Khan, who was being mocked for the past 6 months for doing nothing. It would have been very hard for him to stay silent. That being said, if you read his statement, it focused on the starvation issue, and it was completely silent on, number one, the systematic attacks in hospitals, completely silent on the systematic attack on UN workers, completely silent on the systematic attack on journalists. It was completely silent on the fact that 70% of the homes in Gaza have been pulverized, reduced to dust.
Bombing refugee camps.
Bombing refugee camps. There were many, many items that could have been listed in his indictment that weren't. Now, he claims there are ongoing investigations. Maybe so, but you know what? It's been already 7 months. You had quite a lot of information to say there are reasonable grounds to conclude that Israel is systematically targeting not just the civilian population for starvation, but systematically targeting the population with its artillery and its bombs, and systematically targeting the entire infrastructure, which includes the cultural heritage of Gaza, the libraries, the universities, the schools, all of it demolished. As to what they said about Hamas in the indictment, I would say parts of it are correct. I would say it pales in comparison what Hamas did on October 7th to what Israel has done since October 7th. And I would say some of the charges, in my opinion, have no basis in fact. I've studied the record quite closely. Khan's statement included several references to the rapes that allegedly occurred. Remember, they were holding the senior Hamas leaders responsible for the rapes. There is, in my opinion, zero evidence that Hamas engaged in systematic or methodical rape.
And I believe 60 journalism professors wrote a letter to the New York Times recently demanding they investigate that story they did.
Yeah. And even if you look at the report, which everybody is citing again, by Pramila Patten on the issue of sexual violence, in my opinion, I've written on it. You can go to my Substack. I have an article called Pramila Patten's Rape Fantasies. In my opinion, her report proves the opposite of what she claimed. She claimed that she's proving systematic sexual violence, but if you look at her actual evidence, she found, except for testimony, she found no evidence. She found no photographic evidence. She found no digital evidence. She found no forensic evidence, and not a single survivor of the sexual violence stepped forward to be interviewed by her. So I don't believe that charge is true, but the other side of the coin is 850 civilians were killed. A large number of them were not killed from crossfire. They were not killed by Israel by accident. No, there was a serious atrocities that occurred on October 7th. I do not believe the wise strategy is to pretend it didn't happen or to concoct some sort of conspiracy. I think the wise strategy is try to explain why it happened and not whether or not it did happen.
Thank you for taking the time. That was Norm Finkelstein. And before I wrap up, hold on. I wanted to be nice because I knew others were waiting to talk to him. I've been on the receiving end of waiting for other people to wrap up their interviews, so I wanted to wrap it up so Russell could interview him. Before I go, hey, listen, as far as I could tell, we were the only outlet out here. I mean, aside from just people live streaming to their YouTube, I did not see a national reporter here. Russell from Due Dissidence, which is an independent outlet, is here. Other than Russell, and Due Dissidence, I don't see any other independent outlets, national outlets. They could minimize all they want, but a presidential candidate was here in New York City, which is the capital of media in America. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, all of them could have had cameras out here. They chose not to. Why is that? Why are candidates like Cornel West, Jill Stein, routinely blacked out in the media? Do you think it's because these outlets just don't have the time to come here? You think it's because these outlets don't have the resources, the staff, even to send a lowly young producer? It's because they don't want their message sent. They don't want people to be able to hear their message because their message is wildly popular. Their message is wild. Cornel West's message is popular among lefty progressives, popular among a lot of right-wingers, popular among a lot of libertarians, popular among even some neoliberals, limousine liberals, because he's talking about humanity. He's talking about collectivism, that we are part of the collective. He's talking about empire and taking down the military-industrial complex. They don't want that broadcasted because they are part of the empire. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, PBS, all of those windbag gas bags. They are all gatekeepers and public relations marketers for the empire, for the military-industrial complex. That's why we're here. Whether 300 people watch, which I think there was 300 people watching, or 3 million people watch, we want to be able to give you this message. It's up to you what you do with it. But we want to be able to give you this message. I doubt you even knew before today that Cornel West is now on 7 state ballots. North Carolina, they got on yesterday. I am sure you did not know until I interviewed a worker on his campaign that they believe he'll be on the ballot in Michigan within the next month. If he gets on the ballot in Michigan, that's a tidal wave in American politics because the Democratic Party will have a fucking meltdown if he gets on the ballot in Michigan because it is already very, very tight between Trump and Biden And when you factor in RFK, it's not great for Biden. But then if you factor in Cornel West, who could get, 1%, 2% in Michigan, Biden will freak out. The Democratic Party, the whole corporate apparatus behind the Democratic Party will freak out. Somebody want to do an interview? Sure. Yeah. We'll do another interview too. But it is so important that we have the funding to cover Cornel West. We also want to be able to cover Jill Stein's campaign. I don't know if I'll go cover Trump versus Biden. I don't want to cover that horse race between, gangster over here, genocide, genocider over here. I'd rather not, to tell you the truth. But I do want to cover this. Come on over. What's your name?
Parrish.
Hey, Parrish. Tell me why you're out here, why you're drawn to Dr. West's message.
Well, me personally, I truly believe that, it's time for a change. And a lot of times, people we just give away our votes. We vote because of the way a person look, maybe our color, or we belong to a particular party. But in reality, when you look at the Constitution, what does it say? It says we the people. At no time in the founders of this country did they write, I, the government. So therefore, I got to a point now when people look at their agendas, they got their own personal agenda. They no longer think about the people. You heard a man come up here earlier speak about how the school system, how it was free at one time. Right now, you got kids, they're very intelligent, but even the things I went through growing up, we had after school programs. They got cut. So, you gotta look at the crime-driven attitudes and crime-driven factors in a lot of the poor communities. It's no mistake that blacks and Latinos in this state make up roughly 26%, but we make up 85% of the prison population, and 70% of that come out of New York City. That's what we know as, we call it boroughs, but it's actually 5 counties out of 62 counties of the whole state. They don't understand about how it's 150 assemblymen and 61 senators are making all these rules and laws and stuff in place. They don't understand the process of bills. They don't understand that. And the only time you ask one of these people when they want to hear about your district, for instance, you ask the majority of people over here today, what district they from. They couldn't tell you. You know why? Because they haven't been programmed to learn these things. But they know it by location. That's why when it goes on the news, they say, oh, this happened in Harlem on such street. So people is programmed that way. But let them want to close down a fire department. They're called by your district, because now you're not getting no more opposition. We need to go back to that, meet the candidate, and make the candidates more accountable to the people, because it's the people first.
Let me ask you, because my cameraman there, John, he's been covering the protests here in New York and D.C., and I'm watching it, and I'm saying, there's your health care. There's your education. There's your parks. There's a goddamn army of police out here. Why do you need 200 police officers out on the streets for a bunch of people marching in the streets? They don't have guns. They don't have knives. They're wearing keffiyehs, chanting. I mean, it's like an army, and that is where the money for services are. What is your thoughts on that? Because obviously, Dr. West for years has talked about police brutality and taking that money to spend on working people.
Well, first of all, it boils down to control. And when you deal with classism, you have to have those that has less and have to strive for that American dream. And you're going to have those that you spoke about earlier. We spoke about those small group of individuals who basically have all the wealth. And Tupac even mentioned about this before. How is it that we can sit there and spend money across seas? I'm not saying we should not help other people, but you must help yourself first. How are we able to send millions and billions of dollars to help other countries, but yet you can't feed the homeless over here? You can't house no one people over here. So I have a problem with that. Just like with the migrants that came in this country, I'm not saying they don't need no assistance, but why is it that the migrants was able to go get housing easily? Even when they went to the shelter system over there, they had better living conditions than the people who lived there for years. Why is it that people can come from other countries and get these services, but if I, as American, was to go to their country, they say, fend for yourself, do your best you can. I'm not getting those services, especially over the people who live there. So like I said again, I'm a humanitarian. I believe that we should help others. but not at the expense of not helping the people that voted you in office, and you took an oath to sit there and take care of. It shouldn't be about your agenda. It should be about the people first. Again, the Constitution, we the people.
And you know, what's striking to me is all you hear about from the media, all you hear about is politicians. Democracy is on the line. You know, they say Trump would be a dictator, this and that. But I'm looking around, what kind of democracy do we have if homelessness is up by 12%? 62% of people live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, all over New York City, I don't even know how people could live here. People are getting pushed out of their neighborhoods because all the prices are going up. And basically here, like you said, you're 20 or so % of the population, but you're dominating the prison. That doesn't sound like a very strong democracy to me.
But even with the prison system, that's another thing you have to look at. Even with the prison system, when guys get released from prison, only thing the law requires is that they get $40 in a bus ticket. What is $40 going to do for you? If you don't have family support, the chances is you're going back. This is why the recidivism is the way it is. You know, like I said again, it's an old saying. There's no money in the cure. If we fix the problem, how do we make money? So the same thing with our communities. It's no mistake that most of the people, like where I'm from, like I said, I grew up in Harlem. And when you look around, a lot of us don't even own the property in which we live in. That's why that dollar going there one time and it's out. It does not stay in the community. But in communities that is flourishing, that money is circulated multiple times within the community. This is what we had to get back to. Taking care of our own. Understand that we're not each other's enemies. Stop being competitive with one another and start sitting there and say, you know what? It's time for us to unify. As the old saying they had in the Quran, which, and I always like to use it, is that enjoying that which is right and forbid that which is wrong when it threatens any aspect of our growth and development as a nation of people. And that's the attitude we're supposed to have in the community. It's not about white, it's not about black, it's not about Hispanic, it's about what's right. If you live in a community, what is a community? First of all, let's define it. A community is a group of people who share the same services and basically come together for a purpose. Now, what is our purpose? We had to define that purpose. And when we define that purpose, we can act on that purpose. But if we don't know what our purposes are as individuals, how can we know what our purpose is as collective?
What's your name again?
Parrish.
Parrish?
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
I look forward to seeing your thing on.
We're live right now. Go check us out.
And like I said, and I'm on Instagram also as Harlem.Dawn.
Promote yourself. Where can people find you?
I'm Harlem.Dawn. You'll see me on there. I got over 15,000 followers on Instagram. And what I find on here, if y'all send it to me, I will post it on mine as well and let them know about your particular organization.
Thank you, man.
All right,
appreciate it.
Time, my brother.
Absolutely. That's Parrish from Harlem. So again, I'm going to ask you directly, where is the rest of the media? Time after time, we're the only ones out here. Other than Russell from Due Dissidence, who is out here tonight, their independent YouTube channel, there's no other people here. Whether Cornel West wins or not, I'm not going to lie to you. He's not going to become president. I mean, I'm not going to bullshit you. He's not going to become president. He can make a difference in who does if he gets on ballots in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. But it's important that these messages get out, because if third-party candidates are not covered, if their message does not get out, then all we have left is the corporate duopoly. The Democrats, warmongers, Wall Street whores, or the Republicans, warmongers, Wall Street whores, and, you know, obviously bigots and want to get rid of gay people and the rest of it. So please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. John has been out there doing God's work. He was out there earlier today covering a press conference that pro-Palestinian protesters were holding to react to essentially the NYPD terrorism against them. John got the footage on Saturday of an NYPD officers, for some unknown reason, yanking protesters at random for no reason. Just randomly yanking people who were walking to the sidewalk, pushing them down, beating them in the chest, bloodying one guy's face. They pushed a defenseless woman in another case, and that is supposedly, you know, protecting and serving. No, that's assaulting. Come on down.
I was going to say, imagine all the stuff that I don't get on camera.
Yeah.
with the shit that they do.
So if we had enough money for 2 camera people, imagine what we could do with that. So please support us. $5 a month. StatusCoup.com/join. That's 16 cents a day. I know a lot of people are struggling, but I'm pretty sure you got 16 cents a day. And I'm pretty sure you could think of something that you're spending $5 a month on that you don't need, and you could redistribute it, yes, to Status Coup. Because all I know, I've been doing this around America 8 years now, we'll show up, and we'll keep showing up as long as you help fund us, because we're not taking money from the donors buying off the Democratic and Republican Party politicians. We're not taking money from the corporations or the foundations or the think tanks. Our funding comes from you. So please support us. We're going to try and turn around the Cornel West interview I did earlier, lickety split. He said a lot of, shall we say, viral things that might, get picked up by other news outlets. So we're going to try to get that out as quickly as possible. And we'll continue covering as best we can Cornel West events, Jill Stein events. This one was near me, so it's easier to cover. But again, we need funding if we're going to cover events all over the country. Thank you very much for watching. Again, you could support us, StatusCoup.com/join, $5 a month. If you're already a member or you're not a member but you want to donate at StatusCoup.com/donate. We've been getting great donations in the last few days. StatusCoup.com/donate. That really helps us out. Any amount. We have as low as, $2-3 and as high as, great people have donated several $100. That money is going directly to pay the costs of on-the-ground reporting, myself, John, Colin, and other freelancers. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.